G'day guys, welcome to another video. Today we will talk about PTE versus IELTS in the listening section. And this is to finish up the series of the two exams comparing the four bands. I've put in the video description the different bands, listening, well not listening, listening is this one, writing, reading and speaking, so that you can check them out if you haven't already, and if you have, welcome back to the channel. We're going to assess and compare the listening section into the two exams and then help you decide which one might be better for you based only on the listening section. So with IELTS, it's a very straightforward type of grading. In the IELTS test, we have 40 questions. So we have 40 questions, and normally these have mixed difficulty. So what this means is that we basically have some questions that are like a bit easier, like elementary level, pre-intermediate level, then intermediate, advanced. So out of the 40 questions, we have a mix. Some should be more difficult than others, but in reality, and based on my experience teaching, what I have found is that normally these 40 questions are divided into 4 sections. So you have section 1, let's say S1, S2, S3 and S4. Each section has got 10 questions, yeah? Normally, so we're gonna have 10, 10, 10 and 10 questions. And then based on how many answers you get correct, that will give you your final overall score. In my experience teaching, what I have found is that for the vast majority of test takers, for people, for me when I took the exam, what I noticed is that like the first half is what I like to call the warm-up. And I say the warm-up stage because in this part, a lot of the times candidates tend to do really well. Sometimes getting anything close to like 18 correct answers, or like really close to having full marks. In the second half, this is what we're gonna call the challenge. This is when we need to be careful because, again, I don't really know what it is with this part. Maybe it is that the audio becomes a bit more difficult, maybe it is the speed, maybe it is the question type. Look, in my experience teaching, a lot of the times people struggle with question 3 or section 3 and section 4. I will tell you why right now. So the first thing is that there are different types of questions, and this is probably why people find this bit a bit more challenging. In the IELTS test, you can expect to get multiple choice and multiple choice and then gap fill. Simple as that. So IELTS is very gap fill, very straightforward. So you'll be listening to an audio, there is a sentence, and then you have to then, write down the missing word or the missing words. Simple as that. Or you have a multiple choice question and then you have to choose, right, the correct answer. But there are 2 questions that are usually really challenging, which are the map, which is normally a map that you have to label, and then the other one that is particularly tricky is the matching activity. Right? The matching activity is not always, but in many cases is somewhere between the third part and the second part. And the way it looks, just to give you an example here, it's you might have like a list and you have like a list of questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for example, and then you have statements like A, B, and C. And this could be about anything really. And then what you would need to do is, based on the question, right? Like, let's assume, to make it like straightforward, let's say you have 5 options and you have to do a match. Maybe 1 is going to be B, 2 is going to be C, 3 is A, and so forth and so forth. And let's say that these 2 remain like this. So you have to listen to the audio and then you have to match. Normally when we are doing this question, we have to be very careful, guys, because what happens is if you miss something, then it's like brrr. If you get lost in question 2, it is very easy to get everything else wrong. And we want to avoid that from happening. So this could be one reason why this part is the challenge, why people struggle with this one. Then there is another thing that is challenging in task 4 and in the section 4, and this is the length, because this one is actually really long. One key characteristic of the IELTS exam is that from section 1 to section 3, all the audios are divided into 2 parts. So what that means is you're going to have 10 questions, right? So maybe let me just do like this. So here you have 2 parts, yeah? So you listen to an audio for, let's say, 3 minutes, short break, and then 2 to 3 minutes, and then you have like your first questions and then the second set of questions. But in the last part, you have all in one go. So length is a bit longer, and you listen to the audio all in one go. So basically, no breaks. The fact that we don't have a break makes this one really difficult, because the reality is we're going to be under pressure, right? You have your exam, maybe you want to extend a visa, you maybe need to enter university, or whatever the case may be, but there is going to be a stress being in the test. And then on top of that stress, you have that in this part, you have no breaks, you have to listen to everything, you have to stay concentrated. So here, concentration is going to be very, very important to stay concentrated. So concentration will be key. But we have a problem. But you will be tired. Why? Well, because this is like you have done all this and then you have to listen to a long audio with no breaks and you have to stay concentrated. So I've noticed that over time, or in my experience teaching, I could come here and tell you that a lot of people lose marks on the second half. We have to be very careful with this. But if we zoom out, if we just look at it this way, it is a very straightforward way of testing, in the sense that we have the 40 questions. If you get a certain number of questions correct, you get a score, right? If you get 30 out of 40, you get a 7, for example. If you get, 20 out of 40, you get a 5.5. Nice and easy, straightforward. On PTE, however, we don't have something that straightforward, because here what we have with PTE is that we basically have many questions. So PTE has many types of questions, many question types. I think just this alone puts more pressure on anyone taking the PTE test, because you getting familiar with this, or like getting comfortable with this, doesn't take that much time. In PTE you have all these 4, so you have all of these ones, plus you have write from dictation, you have highlight incorrect word, you have the summary, which is the summarize, and this is just to name a few, yeah? These are like the main on PTE. The PTE doesn't have a map in the listening test. There are more, but these are probably just to name a few. So this is already putting extra pressure on test takers. Why? Well, you have to get used to this. And the biggest thing is the fact that I feel that the pressure that you have on the second half of IELTS, you will have it throughout PTE. Because as we know, this one you have less time. So you have less time and it's like shorter questions. So it's like this and then this and then this and then this. Compared to IELTS, where you go, okay, here I have 5 to 6 questions usually, 3 minutes of audio and then mini break and then the next part. So the element of surprise is not as much as it is on PTE. You're gonna be on pressure you'll be under pressure. I feel that with PTE, with this setup, you will be under more pressure. Then the other problem that we have is the scoring. The scoring is not straightforward. So basically, we have like over 5 types of questions, and then each of them has got a different score, and you get points based on your performance. So overall, just by thinking about that, the weight, or like which one is easier, is tilting more towards IELTS. And to be honest with you, I think that IELTS is the winner in this case because of how straightforward it is, because of how easy it is as a test. It is very easy, not in the sense that the difficulty is easy, but as a test taker to get ready for IELTS, it's very easy to know what to expect and how to prepare, basically. There is a key thing that is important to mention for both exams. Actually, you know what? I'm going to change the color to make it more, because this is not only about PTE. When you have any exam, or at least between these two exams, when we talk about the listening section, there is something extremely important, and that is you need to have good spelling. As you know, English has got a lot of different rules. We have like a lot of words with double S, double M, double L, double P, and the list goes on and on. And you need to be careful because there is a lot of vocabulary or lots of words that sound one way, but are written in a different way. Say, for example, words like this, like you've got though, but then if you put a T at the end, if you put a T, then this becomes thought. This is a key aspect on the two exams where we have to be very careful. Spelling is extremely, extremely important. Then the other one has to do with, well, look, in PTE, to be honest with you, it's going to be super useful to basically have good note taking, but this is an extra note taking. But for the most part, spelling is probably like the key element. I would even argue that spelling in PTE is even more important than in IELTS, because in IELTS it is important too, but because you have so many questions, if you make a few spelling mistakes in IELTS, maybe that's obviously going to affect your score and you're going to get questions wrong. But compare that to PTE, where you have questions like writing from dictation, where you have questions like the summary of the spoken text. The spelling is a big component of that one. Also, some questions also give you points on writing and reading, so then having bad spelling in PTE could really be detrimental. So good spelling is really, really important for PTE and obviously for IELTS as well. There is one last thing I wanted to tell you, and it is that basically I would say, and just like I did with my other video series, I think that IELTS is the easier exam in terms of the listening section because of how easy the barrier to entry is. It is easy and comfortable to get used to these types of questions and to prepare for these types of questions. PTE is not impossible, and what I have noticed in many cases is that candidates who do well with IELTS, when they get a good score in IELTS, then they can use all these skills and knowledge to then go into PTE and do really well. So the rule that, or the recommendation that I mentioned before, which was that normally PTE is best when you want to get the plus 20 points in your PR. Usually, if you get to an IELTS of 7 or more in listening, it is very easy to transfer that into PTE. Is it the same backwards? That's something that it's a bit more difficult to say. In my experience, I have seen lots of people going from IELTS into PTE, and to be fair with you, I have also seen people going from PTE to IELTS, but talking only about the listening section, I think in this case, we have to say, or I have to tell you guys, that the winner is going to be the IELTS test. And the advice remains the same, thinking only about the listening section. For anyone watching, if you are thinking, okay, I need to get a 5 or a 5.5 or a 6 or a 6.5, getting all those scores will be much, much easier for you in the IELTS test. Compared to PTE, where you're going to be under a lot of pressure, the margin for error is a bit higher, so if you make mistakes, you're going to lose more points. So I would still say PTE is probably better if someone wants to get the plus 20 points on the PR, or even the plus 10, you know, because the reality is that for some people, getting the equivalent of a 7 in IELTS can be challenging. Look, in that case, maybe think about PTE. But for someone who hasn't taken the test before, or if you need those lower scores, I would say just make it easy for you and go with IELTS. But you might be thinking, okay, Emilio, that sounds great. Maybe IELTS is a bit easier, but is that the case all the time? Well, obviously not really. Everyone is different. So what I would tell you is if you do have any questions about these two exams, please let me know in the comment section down below. And also, if you're still wondering, should I do IELTS or should I do PTE? I've made a video that brings a full breakdown of the two exams in 2026. So go ahead and check it out. In case you want to study with me, I offer preparation courses. I do individual classes as well. All my details are in the video description down below. And this video came up from one of your questions. So like I said earlier, if you do have any questions when it comes to test preparation, life in Australia, God, or anything, feel free to put it here in the comment section down below. I will see you on the next video. Thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you on this video right here. Take care and bye for now. See ya.